Welcome to History to Relax. Tonight, we are going to step back in time, leaving the noise of the modern world behind. We are traveling to a place of white marble, golden sunlight, and deep shadows. We are going to ancient Rome. Before we begin our journey into the life of a senator, I have a small favor to ask. If you find these stories peaceful and interesting, please take a moment to like this episode and subscribe to the podcast. It costs you absolutely nothing, but it helps this channel more than you can imagine. It allows us to keep building these bridges to the past for you. Thank you for your support. Now, make yourself comfortable. Take a deep breath and let the city of Rome rise around you. The first thing you feel is the cold. It isn't a biting winter cold, but the sharp, clean chill of expensive stone. You are Marcus Livius Drusus, and your feet have just touched the floor of your bedroom in a villa on the Palatine Hill. Outside, the sun is not yet fully up. The sky is a deep, bruised purple, the color of the stripe on the very toga you will soon have to wear. You sit on the edge of your bed, which is made of fine wood and strung with linen cords. It's comfortable, but as a senator of Rome, you aren't allowed to stay in it as long as you'd like. You hear a soft movement near the door. It's Encolpius, your most trusted slave. He doesn't speak yet. He knows you aren't a man of words until you've had a bit of water. He carries a small bronze lamp, the flame dancing and casting long, flickering shadows against the wall paintings. The walls are covered in scenes of gardens, green trees and bright birds that never fly away. In the dim light, they look almost real. You stand up, and your joints creak just a little. You are not a young soldier anymore. You are a man of the state, a man of gravity, a man whose every move is watched. Encolpius leads you to a small wash basin. The water is cool, and you splash it onto your face. It's a shock to the system, but it clears the fog of sleep. You look at yourself in a polished silver mirror. You see a face that has seen many sessions in the Senate House. There are lines around your eyes from squinting at scrolls, and perhaps from worrying about the emperor's latest mood. You don't look like a hero from a statue, and that's okay. In Rome, power isn't about looking like a god. It's about looking like a man who can handle the weight of the world without dropping it. Breakfast is a quiet, lonely affair. You sit in the small dining room, the triclinium. You don't lie down on the couches yet. That is for the evening banquet. For now, you eat a piece of hard bread dipped in watered-down wine and a few dried figs. The figs are sweet, a little reminder that life is good, even if your back hurts. You think about the day ahead. There are rumors that the emperor wants to pass a new law about the grain supply. It's a dangerous topic. If you agree too quickly, you look like a sycophant. If you disagree, you look like a traitor. Being a senator is like walking on a very thin rope stretched over a pit of lions. You have to keep your balance, look straight ahead, and smile. Now comes the most difficult part of your morning. The toga. You hate the toga. Every senator hates the toga, though they would never say it out loud. It is 6 meters of heavy, high-quality wool, semicircular and incredibly hot. You cannot put it on yourself. It's impossible. You stand like a statue, arms out, while Encolpius and another servant begin the ritual. They wrap, they fold, they tuck. They ensure the sinus, the large fold that hangs down, is exactly the right length. They make sure the umbo, the little knot of fabric at the waist, is perfect. Is it too tight, master? Encolpius asks. It is a toga, Encolpius. You sigh. It is always too tight. It is the weight of the republic, or what's left of it. You look down at your chest. Running across your shoulder and down the front is the latus clavus, the broad purple stripe. To a common man in the street, this stripe means you're a giant. It means you have money, power, and the year of the gods. To you today, It feels like a very heavy lead weight. But you stand taller. You adjust your rings. You wear a heavy gold ring with a seal, a family crest showing a grain of wheat and a sword. It represents what your ancestors did. They grew the food and they fought the wars. You cannot let them down. You move toward the front of the house, the atrium. This is the heart of your home. In the center is a square pool of water, the impluvium, which catches the rain from the opening in the roof. The sun is higher now, and a beam of bright, dusty light hits the water, making it sparkle. Around the room are the imagines, the wax masks of your father, your grandfather, and his father before him. They sit in little wooden cupboards, watching you. Their noses are a bit crooked, and their expressions are stern. They seem to be saying, "Don't mess this up, Marcus. We worked hard for this house." You take a deep breath. You can hear a low hum coming from the other side of the massive front doors. It sounds like a beehive. It is the sound of the salutatio. Every morning, dozens of people, your clients, come to your house. Some are poor men looking for a few coins to buy bread. Some are businessmen who need you to speak to a judge for them. Some are just there because being seen at a senator's house makes them feel important. You nod to the doorkeeper. He unbolts the heavy oak doors, and the world rushes in. "Hail, Marcus Livius," they shout. The sound echoes off the marble. You put on your public face. It is a face of calm, noble kindness. You don't actually remember all their names, but luckily, you don't have to. Standing right behind you is another slave, your nomenclator. His only job in life is to remember names. As a man approaches, the slave whispers in your ear, "This is Gaius, the builder. His wife just had a son." "Gaius," you say, reaching out a hand. "I heard the good news. A son for the empire. Is the mother well?" Gaius beams. He thinks you're a genius. He thinks you care about his wife. And in a way you do. If Gaius is happy, he will vote for your friends. If your friends are in power, you stay safe. It is a giant circle of favors that keeps the city from falling apart. You spend an hour like this, shaking hands, handing out small bags of coins, and listening to complaints about leaky roofs or crooked merchants. Your arm starts to ache from the weight of the toga's sleeve, and your feet are already tired in your leather calce, the special red shoes that only senators wear. They are beautiful, but they have no arch support. Finally, the crowd thins out. It's time to head to the forum. You don't walk alone. A senator never walks alone. You are surrounded by your entourage. You have your slaves, a few of your most loyal clients, and 2 lictors, official guards, who carry bundles of rods called fasces. They clear the way for you. As you step out onto the street, the full sensory assault of Rome hits you. It isn't the clean, white city you see in movies. It's a riot of color and noise. There are posters painted on the walls in bright red and black ink, advertising upcoming gladiator fights or complaining about the price of wine. The smell is a mix of expensive incense from the temples, roasting meat from the street stalls, and the less pleasant scent of the open gutters. "Make way for the senator," your guards cry out. People press themselves against the walls to let you pass. You see a group of schoolboys carrying their wax tablets, looking at you with wide eyes. You see a merchant from Egypt selling blue glass bottles, and a woman in a bright yellow stola carrying a basket of laundry. You are a small island of purple and white, moving through a sea of common people. You try to look dignified, but you're actually trying very hard not to step in a puddle of something suspicious. As you walk down the hill, the Forum Romanum opens up before you. It is the most beautiful sight in the world. Forest of columns, golden roofs, and the great temple of Jupiter looking down from the heights. This is where the world is run. This is where the heart of the empire beats. You feel a sudden surge of pride. Yes, The toga is heavy, and yes, your feet hurt, and yes, you are worried about the emperor. But you are Marcus Livius Drusus. You are a senator of Rome, and your day has only just begun. You walk toward the Curia, the Senate house, where the shadows are long and the air is thick with the smell of old parchment and even older secrets. You take one last look at the sky, wondering what the gods have planned for you today, before you step into the darkness of the hall. The sun is higher now, and the heat of the Roman morning is starting to press down on the city. As you descend the slope of the Palatine Hill, the noise of Rome changes. It shifts from the private whispers of your villa to the deafening roar of the world's capital. This is part 2 of our journey. The echoing streets. Your entourage moves like a slow-moving ship through a crowded harbor. Your lictors, the guards walking in front of you, use their wooden rods to gently, and sometimes not so gently, push people aside. "Make way for the Honorable Marcus Livius," they call out. Their voices are gruff, practiced. You walk behind them, trying to maintain a steady, rhythmic pace. In Rome, a senator doesn't hurry. If you run, you look panicked. If you walk too slowly, you look lazy. You must walk with gravitas, a heavy, purposeful step that says you are a man of importance. As you reach the bottom of the hill, you pass near the Subura, the most crowded part of the city. The smell hits you first, a thick, heavy cloud of frying oil, cheap wine, and the sweat of thousands of people living on top of one another. You see the insulae, the giant apartment buildings, rising 5 or 6 stories high. They look shaky, held together by hope and cheap timber. Laundry hangs from the windows like colorful flags, and you can hear a woman screaming at a merchant below who is trying to overcharge her for a handful of onions. You see a group of soldiers off duty, their red tunics dusty from the road. They look at you, and for a second you lock eyes with a young centurion. He doesn't bow, but he moves aside. You wonder where he's been. Dacia? Syria? Britain? He is the muscle of the empire, but you are the mind. Or at least, that is what you tell yourself to feel better about your soft hands and your expensive shoes. Suddenly, the crowd thins as you enter the paved area of the Forum. The transition is like stepping out of a storm and into a calm library. Here, the ground is made of smooth grey stone. The buildings are massive, their white marble columns gleaming so brightly in the sun that it actually hurts your eyes. You stop for a moment at the Millenarium Aureum, the golden milestone. This is the symbolic center of the world. All roads lead here. You think about the thousands of miles of stone roads stretching out from this very spot, crossing deserts and mountains, all so that a letter can reach you, or a tax coin can reach the treasury. It's a staggering thought. It makes you feel very small, even with your purple stripe. Look at him, the great Marcus Livius, admiring the view as if he owns it. You don't need to turn around to know that voice. It's high-pitched, a little too loud, and carries a hint of a sneer. It belongs to Lucius Varro. Varro is what the old families call a new man. His grandfather was probably a farmer, but his father made a fortune selling leather to the army, and now Varro has bought his way into the Senate. He is wearing a toga that is even whiter than yours. He probably used extra bleach, and he's surrounded by a crowd of followers who laugh at all his jokes. You turn and offer a thin, polite smile. Varro, I didn't see you there. I was just thinking about the majesty of the city. Something your family is still getting used to, I imagine. It's a small sting, a reminder that your family has been here for 300 years, and his has been here for 20. Varro's smile doesn't fade, but his eyes turn cold. This is the hidden war of the Senate. It's not fought with swords, but with words, family trees, and dinner party invitations. Always the philosopher, Marcus, Varro says, stepping closer. The smell of his perfume is overwhelming. Something expensive from the east. Probably cinnamon and myrrh. Are you ready for the session today? I hear the Emperor is in a decisive mood. He wants the grain laws settled by noon. He doesn't like to be kept waiting for his lunch. A chill goes down your spine despite the heat. When a senator says the Emperor is decisive, it usually means someone is about to lose their property or their life. You nod slowly. The Emperor's wisdom is our guide, as always. You say the words loudly enough for the people nearby to hear. In Rome, you never know who is listening. The man selling sausages at the corner might be a spy. Your own lictor might be reporting back to the palace. You have to speak as if the Emperor is standing right behind you. Varro chuckles and moves on, his group of followers trailing behind him like a tail. You watch him go. He is dangerous because he has nothing to lose and everything to prove. You, on the other hand, have a legacy to protect. You continue toward the Curia Julia, the Senate House. It's a massive rectangular building with giant bronze doors. As you approach the steps, you see other senators arriving. It's a sea of white and purple. Some are old men, leaning on the arms of their slaves, their faces etched with the memories of a dozen different emperors. Others are young, eager, and nervous, adjusting their togas every 5 seconds. You pause at a small fountain near the entrance. You take a handful of water and dampen the back of your neck. The wool of the toga is starting to itch, and the sun is cooking the stone beneath your feet. You look at the bronze doors of the Senate. They are open, and inside it looks like a dark cave. You can hear the low murmur of voices echoing inside, the sound of 300 men preparing to govern the world. For a second, you feel a wave of exhaustion. You think about your villa, the quiet garden, and the way the wind sounds in the olive trees. You could have stayed there. You could have been a quiet country gentleman. But the blood of the Drusi doesn't allow for quiet lives. You take a deep breath, pull the edge of your toga up over your shoulder to make sure it looks perfect, and step into the shadows of the doorway. The air inside is cooler, but it feels heavy. It smells of beeswax, old wood, and the breath of many men. The floor is a beautiful mosaic of colored marbles, but you don't look down. You look ahead at the rows of wooden benches. This is where the fate of provinces is decided. This is where a man can be made a god or a corpse. You find your seat. It's a simple wooden bench, nothing special, but your spot is near the front, a sign of your rank. You sit down, and the wood feels hard against your back. You look across at the empty chair at the far end of the hall. It is the Sella Curalis, the chair of the emperor. Right now it is empty, but its presence is everywhere. It's like a silent judge, waiting to see who will speak and who will stay silent. A bell rings softly, somewhere in the distance. The doors begin to close with a heavy, metallic thud, shutting out the noise of the street and the bright light of the sun. The room goes quiet. The only sound is the rustle of wool as 300 men settle into their places. Your heart beats a little faster. The session is about to begin. You reach into the fold of your toga and touch a small piece of parchment where you've scribbled some notes. Your hands are a little shaky, so you grip the wood of the bench until your knuckles turn white. Fortune favor Rome, the presiding consul says, his voice booming in the high-ceilinged room. You close your eyes for a brief moment and say a silent prayer to Janus, the god of beginnings. Let me say the right thing, you think. Let me be invisible today. But in the Senate of the Roman Empire, being invisible is the hardest thing of all. You open your eyes, the debate begins, and the world of the morning, the cold marble, the bread and figs, the shouting streets, fades away. Now, there is only the law, the emperor, and the dangerous game of power. As you step onto the polished marble floor, the first thing you notice is the change in the air. Outside, the air was hot and moving, filled with the energy of a million lives. Inside, the air is still. It is cool, but it feels heavy, as if the weight of 500 years of history is pressing down on your shoulders. The room is a massive rectangle, and the ceiling is so high that the top corners are lost in shadow. High above, the windows let in long, sharp beams of dusty light that slice through the darkness like golden swords. You walk toward your seat, and the sound of your red leather shoes clicking on the floor echoes all the way to the rafters. It is a lonely sound. In this room, every sound is amplified. A whisper can sound like a shout. A nervous cough can sound like a thunderclap. You see the other senators already in their places. They sit on long wooden benches that rise in tiers on either side of the central floor, a sea of white and purple. You find your spot on the second tier. As you sit, the wood of the bench feels hard and unyielding. It was designed this way on purpose. A Roman senator is not supposed to be comfortable. You are here to endure, to think, and to lead. You look down at your hands, resting on your knees. They are steady, but you can feel a slight tremor deep in your chest. You reach into the fold of your toga and touch the small piece of parchment you prepared earlier. It is damp from the sweat of your palm. At the far end of the hall, on a raised platform, sits the emperor. He is not wearing a crown. Romans hate the word king, but he doesn't need one. He wears a simple toga, perhaps a bit finer than yours, and he sits in a chair that looks like any other. But the space around him is a vacuum. No one sits within 10 feet of him. It is a circle of invisible fire. He's leaning back, his chin resting on his hand, watching the room with eyes that seem to see everything and nothing at all. He looks like a man who has heard every lie ever told and is waiting for someone to invent a new one. The session begins not with a bang, but with a drone. The consul, the man presiding today, stands in the center and begins to read a list of administrative tasks. For the next hour, the room is filled with the talk of grain shipments from Alexandria, the repair of a broken aqueduct in the northern hills, and a dispute over the taxes of a small town in Gaul. It is incredibly, wonderfully boring. You find your mind drifting, a dangerous thing in this place. You look at the walls, which are covered in intricate carvings and paintings of Roman victories. You think about your son, who is probably at the racing stables right now, wasting your money on horses. You think about your wife, who told you this morning to remember to buy more of that expensive olive oil from Spain. These are the small, soft thoughts of a human being. But then, you catch a glimpse of the emperor shifting in his seat, and the soft thoughts vanish. You pull yourself back into the present. Then, the mood in the room changes. It is like the feeling in the air just before a summer storm breaks. A sudden drop in pressure, a stillness that makes your skin prickle. Lucius Varro stands up. He's the new man you encountered in the forum, the one with the expensive perfume and the sharp tongue. He doesn't walk to the center. He stands right where he is, his hand resting casually on the shoulder of the senator next to him. "My fellow Romans," Varro begins, his voice smooth as oil. "We have spent much time today discussing the belly of the empire, our grain and our wine. And that is right. A full belly makes for a quiet city. But what of the heart? What of the loyalty of those who walk the streets just outside these doors?" A ripple of movement goes through the benches. Senators who were nodding off are suddenly wide awake. Varro is moving away from the safe topics. He is entering the territory of treason, and in the Roman Empire, that is a land from which few return. "I have heard," Varro continues, "that there are certain circles in the city, men of high birth, who suggest that the emperor's new building projects are a vanity we cannot afford. They say the gold would be better spent on the soldiers or the dolls. They whisper that the Senate is becoming a graveyard for old ideas. The silence that follows is absolute. You can hear the distant cry of a bird outside, high and lonely. Varro has thrown a spear into the room. He isn't naming names, not yet. He is waiting. He's waiting for someone to get nervous. He's waiting for someone to defend these whisperers, so he can point his finger and say, "There is the traitor." You feel a cold sweat break out on your forehead. You know exactly what Varro is doing. He is testing the room. He's trying to see who is loyal to the Emperor and who is loyal to the old ways. And he's looking directly at you. You are a Drusus. Your family represents the old ways. You are exactly the kind of man he wants to destroy to prove his own loyalty to the throne. You look at the Emperor. He hasn't moved a muscle. He is still leaning on his hand, but his eyes are now fixed on Varro. The Emperor loves it when his senators fight each other. It keeps them from fighting him. You know you cannot stay silent. If you stay silent, it looks like you agree with the whispers. If you speak too aggressively, you look like you are trying too hard to hide something. You need a middle path. You need the senatorial balance. You stand up. The movement is slow, deliberate. You make sure your toga falls in perfect folds around your legs. You wait for the echoes of your movement to die down before you speak. The Senator Varro has an excellent ear, you say, your voice calm and slightly amused. It is truly impressive that he can hear the whispers of the Subura while he sits in the comfort of his villas. Perhaps he should spend more time listening to the gods and less to the gossip of the wine shops. A few senators let out a small, muffled laugh. Varro's face flushes a deep red. But, you continue, your voice growing stronger. Varro is right about one thing. Rome is built on loyalty. But loyalty is not a thing of whispers and shadows. Loyalty is what we do here. Every grain of wheat we bring to the city, every stone we lay for a temple, every law we debate, that is our loyalty. The Emperor does not need us to hunt for ghosts in the streets. He needs us to do our duty. To worry about the whispers of fools is to give them power they do not have. Rome is eternal because we do not blink when a few men complain. We lead. You sit back down. Your heart is thumping so hard, you think the man next to you must be able to hear it. You've done it. You turned Varro's trap into a lecture on duty. You didn't defend the protesters, but you made Varro look like a panicked child looking for monsters under his bed. The Emperor finally moves. He stands up. He doesn't say a word to Varro. He doesn't say a word to you. He simply nods to the consul and walks toward his private exit. That nod is everything. It means the game is over for today. The lion is satisfied. The consul strikes his staff on the floor. The session is adjourned. Go in peace. The room explodes into sound. The tension breaks like a glass vase hitting the floor. Senators stand up, stretching their tired limbs, laughing and talking. The statues become men again. You stay in your seat for a moment, waiting for your legs to stop shaking. You watch Varro. He is surrounded by his followers, but he looks smaller now. He glances your way once, a look of pure, unadulterated hatred, before he turns and disappears into the crowd. You've won a battle, Marcus, but you've made an enemy who will wait for you in the dark. Finally, you stand and make your way toward the doors. As you step out onto the porch of the Curia, the midday sun hits you like a physical blow. It is blindingly bright, and the heat is intense. After the cool grey shadows of the Senate House, the Forum looks like a riot of gold and white. You take a long, deep breath of the dusty air. It smells of horses and sweat and life. You feel a strange sense of relief, but also a lingering sadness. You look at the massive columns of the temples around you. They have stood here for centuries, and they will be here long after you are gone. The political games, the insults, the fears, they are just ripples in a very large pond. Your slave, Encolpius, is waiting for you at the bottom of the steps. He sees your face and hands you a piece of fruit, a cold, sweet plum. "Was it a good session, master?" he asks quietly. You bite into the plum, the juice cooling your throat. You look back at the dark entrance of the Curia. "We are still alive, Encolpius," you say, a tired smile touching your lips. In Rome, that is the best kind of session there is. You begin to walk away from the heart of power, moving toward the social chaos of the great baths. The toga is heavy, the sun is hot, and your feet ache in your red shoes. But for now, the shadows have retreated. You are Marcus Livius Drusus, a senator of the Roman Empire, and you have survived another morning in the most dangerous room on earth. As you walk, the sounds of the Forum rise up to meet you, the heartbeat of the city that never sleeps, never stops, and never forgets. You are just one man in its long history, but today, your voice was heard. You move into the crowd, the purple stripe on your shoulder, a mark of both your pride and your prison, as the sun begins its slow descent towards the afternoon. The sun is now at its highest point, a golden coin hanging in the center of the deep blue Roman sky. The shadows that were so long and threatening this morning have shrunk, hiding directly beneath the feet of the thousands of people who fill the Forum. You, Marcus Livius Drusus, step off the porch of the Senate House and feel the heat of the air hit your skin like a warm, heavy blanket. The Forum at midday is a beautiful, chaotic symphony. To your left, the lawyers are shouting in the basilicas, grand roofed halls where the law is practiced. You can hear them arguing about property lines and stolen cattle, their voices competing with the sound of the money changers clinking silver coins onto marble tables. There is a smell in the air that is unique to Rome. It is a mixture of expensive incense burning on altars, the dusty scent of the stones, and the sharp, salty smell of the sea coming from the fish market nearby. Before you go any further, you stop. You look toward the small, round temple of Vesta. It is a simple building compared to the massive temples of the great gods, but it is the most important place in the city. Inside that temple, a fire is burning. It is a fire that must never go out, for if it does, the Romans believe the city itself will fall. You see one of the Vestal virgins, dressed in her white robes and headdress, walking slowly across the courtyard. She looks like a ghost from another world. You reach into a small pouch hidden in the folds of your toga. You find a single silver coin. You walk to a small altar nearby, say a silent prayer of thanks for surviving the Senate session, and drop the coin into the collection box. For a Roman, religion isn't just about faith, it's a contract. You give the gods a gift, and in return, you hope they keep the roof of your house from falling in, or keep the emperor in a good mood. It is a business deal with the divine, and you always make sure your payments are on time. "The sun is biting today, master," Encolpius says, shielding his eyes. "Shall we head to the baths?" "Yes," you say, wiping a bead of sweat from your temple. "The baths. My soul needs it, but my skin needs it more." You begin the walk toward the great baths. In Rome, the baths are not just a place to get clean. They are the city's heart, its office, its gym, and its gossip center. It is where the real business of the empire is done. You walk past the stalls of the sausage sellers, who are crying out their prices. You pass a group of Greek philosophers arguing about the nature of the soul, while a crowd of people ignores them. You see a man being led away by guards for stealing a loaf of bread, and a group of wealthy women in litters, curtained chairs carried by slaves, moving through the crowd like ships in a sea of people. As you approach the entrance to the baths, the architecture changes. The buildings become even more massive, with arches so large they seem to hold up the sky. You enter the apoditerium, the changing room. It is a large hall with high vaulted ceilings and niches in the walls for your clothes. This is a strange moment for a senator. To get into the baths, you must take off the toga. You must take off the purple stripe. You must even take off your special red shoes. Encolpius helps you undress. As the heavy wool falls away, you feel a sudden, wonderful lightness. But you also feel vulnerable. Without your clothes, you are just a man. Your belly is a little softer than it was 10 years ago, and your skin is pale. You look around and see other men doing the same. There is a general, an admiral, and a merchant, all standing there in their skin. In the baths, everyone is equal, or at least, they pretend to be. Guard these well, Encolpius, you say, pointing to your clothes. Theft in the baths is common, and there is nothing more embarrassing for a senator than having to walk home in a borrowed towel. You enter the first room, the tepidarium, or the warm room. It is filled with a soft, golden light and the gentle sound of water dripping. The air is humid and smells of expensive oils. You sit on a marble bench and let the warmth seep into your bones. Your muscles, which have been tight all morning from the stress of the Senate, begin to relax. You close your eyes and listen to the echoes of the room, the splashing of water, the low murmur of voices, and the occasional slap of a masseur's hand on someone's back. This is where you see your friend Servius. He's a senator like you, but he prefers books to politics. He is sitting in a shallow pool, looking very relaxed. "Marcus," he calls out, waving a hand. "I heard you gave Varro a lesson in manners today." The news has already traveled from the forum to the water. You slide into the warm water next to him. It feels like a miracle. Varro is a mosquito, Servius. He doesn't want to debate. He wants to sting. "Well, you swatted him," Servius laughs. "But be careful. Mosquitoes carry fever. He will be looking for a way to get back at you. I heard he's hosting a dinner tonight for the Emperor's secretary. That is not a good sign for us." You sigh, letting the warm water swirl around your shoulders. Even here, naked in a pool of water, the game continues. You can never truly turn it off. You talk with Servius for a while about the latest plays in the theatre and the price of horses, avoiding the dangerous topics of the palace. It is a rare moment of peace. After the warm room, it is time for the coldarium, the hot room. This is the Roman version of a sauna. The floor is heated from below by a furnace, and the air is so thick with steam that you can barely see the man sitting next to you. You sit there until you are dripping with sweat, feeling the toxins and the stress of the day leaving your body through your pores. It's a physical cleansing that makes you feel like you are being reborn. Now comes the part that would seem very strange to a modern person. You don't use soap. The Romans don't have it. Instead, Encolpius covers your body in fine olive oil. Then he takes a strigil, a curved metal scraping tool. He runs the metal blade over your skin, scraping away the oil, the sweat, and the dust of the Roman streets. It sounds harsh, but it feels incredible. It's like a deep tissue massage that leaves your skin tingling and glowing. "You look 5 years younger, master," Encolpius jokes as he finishes. "I feel 10 years older," you reply, though you are smiling. Finally, the most shocking part, the frigidarium. This is a massive hall with a pool of ice-cold water. To a Roman, the transition from the steaming heat to the freezing cold is what keeps the body strong and the mind sharp. You stand on the edge of the pool, take a deep breath, and plunge in. The cold is a physical shock. It steals your breath and makes your heart race. But as you surface, gasping for air, you feel a surge of energy like nothing else. The world looks sharper. The colors of the marble mosaics on the floor look brighter, and your mind feels clear. You climb out of the water, and Encolpius wraps you in a large, soft linen towel. As you walk back to the changing room to put your toga back on, you feel like a different man. The weight of the morning is gone. The fear of the emperor is still there, tucked away in the back of your mind, but it no longer feels like a heavy chain. You have been washed, scraped, heated, and cooled. You have participated in the great Roman ritual of the afternoon. You dress slowly, the wool of the toga feeling a bit softer against your clean skin. You step out of the baths and back into the Roman afternoon. The sun has moved, and the light is now a deep honey gold. The shadows of the columns are stretching out across the street again. The day is moving into its second half. The business of the state is done, and now the social dance of the evening begins. You walk back towards your villa, your red shoes clicking on the stones. You are hungry, you are clean, and for the first time today, you feel truly at home in your own skin. But as you turn a corner, you see a shadow move in a doorway. You realize that in Rome, even when you are clean, the dirt of the city is never far away. The afternoon lull is about to end, and the evening's challenges are waiting just around the corner. The sun has begun its slow, graceful descent toward the horizon, painting the tops of the marble temples in shades of apricot and bruised gold. The air is no longer a heavy weight, but a soft, cooling breeze that carries the scent of the sea and the distant smoke of cooking fires. You walk with a lighter step now, the red leather of your shoes feeling more comfortable against your clean, warm feet. You have left the shouting matches of the Senate and the steamy gossip of the baths behind, seeking a moment of quiet before the social storms of the evening begin. You find yourself wandering through the Argiletum, the street of the booksellers. It is a narrow, bustling passage that connects the Forum to the crowded neighborhoods of the city. Here, the noise is different. It isn't the roar of the crowd or the clatter of carts. It is the soft, rhythmic sound of scribes dipping reeds into ink and the dry rustle of papyrus being unrolled. The walls are covered in titles, large pieces of parchment hung outside the shops, announcing the latest poems, histories, and philosophical treatises. You step into the shop of a man named Sosius. He's a small, energetic Greek who has made a fortune selling the words of dead men to living ones. The shop is a labyrinth of tall wooden shelves, packed tightly with thousands of scrolls. The smell here is intoxicating. It is a mix of cedar oil, used to keep the bugs from eating the paper, and the sharp, metallic scent of fresh ink. For a man like you, Marcus, who spends his life surrounded by the noise of politics, this smell is the scent of peace. "Ah, Senator Drusus," Sosius says, bowing so low his forehead almost touches a stack of scrolls. "You have come at a perfect time. I've just received a shipment from Alexandria, a new history of the Punic Wars, written by a man who actually bothered to look at the maps." You smile and pick up a scroll, feeling the rough, fibrous texture of the papyrus under your thumb. It is cool to the touch. Is it any good, Sosius? Or is it another one of those books where every Roman is a hero and every enemy is a monster? Sosius shrugs, a mischievous glint in his eye. It is history, master. History is whatever the winner decides it should be. But the ink is very high quality, and the handwriting is easy on the eyes. You walk deeper into the shadows of the shop, letting the quiet settle over you. You look at the names written on the tags hanging from the scrolls. Homer, Virgil, Cicero. Men who are long gone, yet their voices are still here, trapped in these little tubes of paper. You wonder, with a sudden pang of sadness, if anyone will ever write about you. Will there be a scroll 100 years from now that mentions Marcus Livius Drusus? Or will you be just another name in a long list of men who wore the purple stripe and then vanished into the dust. You realize, as you stand there in the dim light, that your entire life is a performance. The way you stand, the way you speak in the Senate, the way you walk through the crowd, it is all a script you have been learning since you were a boy. Even now, in a quiet bookshop, you are performing the role of the educated senator. You are aware of how you look to the other customers. You are aware of the dignity you must maintain. You think about your ancestors, those wax masks waiting for you in the atrium of your house. They were performers too. They played the parts of heroes and leaders, and they played them so well that they became legends. But did they ever feel this tired? Did they ever stand in a bookshop and wish they could just be a man who grows olives and watches the clouds? A young man, perhaps no more than 20, is standing in the corner, reading a scroll of love poetry. He is smiling to himself, lost in the words. You feel a wave of envy for him. He isn't worried about grain taxes or the emperor's mood. He is worried about a girl with dark hair and a laugh like a silver bell. You want to tell him to hold on to that feeling, to stay in that corner as long as he can, because once he puts on the toga of a man, the world will start asking for its pound of flesh. I will take the history, Socius, you say, handing the scroll back to him, and find me something for my son. Something about horses, but perhaps with a bit of geometry hidden in the middle. He needs to learn that the world isn't just a racetrack. Socius chuckles and begins to wrap the scrolls in protective leather covers. A wise choice, Senator. Information is the only thing the gods allow us to take with us into the shadows. As you wait, you look out the doorway at the people passing by. You see a slave carrying a heavy load of firewood, his face set in a mask of endurance. You see a wealthy woman in a purple dress, her jewelry clinking as she walks. You see a soldier, a merchant, a beggar. Everyone is playing a part. Rome is one giant theater, and the play has been running for 800 years. The costumes change, and the actors die, but the story remains the same. The struggle for power, the search for love, and the hope that we will be remembered. You pay for the books, the silver coins feeling heavy in your hand. As you step back out into the street, the light has turned a deep, fiery red. The city is preparing for the night. You can hear the sound of shutters being closed and the first torches being lit in the doorways of the taverns. You walk toward home, but you take the long way, through a small park filled with laurel trees. The scent of the leaves is sharp and clean. You sit for a moment on a stone bench, watching a group of children play a game of marbles in the dirt. They are shouting and laughing, unaware of the important things happening in the buildings nearby. To them, the most important thing in the world is a small, round stone and a circle in the dust. You find yourself smiling. There is a certain humor in it all, isn't there? You, one of the most powerful men in the world, sitting on a cold bench, feeling jealous of a child with a marble. You realize that the performance is only a burden if you forget that it's just a play. For a moment, you let the senator go. You aren't Marcus the leader, or Marcus the rival of Varro. You are just a man sitting under a tree, listening to the wind and feeling the cool air on his face. But the moment cannot last. You hear the distant sound of a trumpet from the Praetorian camp. It is a reminder that the world is still there, and it is waiting for you. The evening is coming, and with it, the high-stakes dinner parties and the whispered conspiracies. You stand up, and as you do, you feel the senator come back. You straighten your shoulders, you adjust the folds of your toga. You put on the mask of gravity. You walk through the gates of your villa, and the doorkeeper bows. The house is quiet, filled with the soft blue shadows of twilight. You see the wax masks of your fathers in the atrium. In the fading light, they almost seem to be nodding to you, as if to say, Good. You survived the morning. Now, prepare for the night. You go to your study and lay the new scrolls on your desk. The room is filled with the scent of old wood and dried herbs. You look at the history of the Punic Wars and think about the men who fought in them. They thought they were the center of the universe. They thought their struggles were eternal. And now, they are just ink on papyrus, bought for a few silver coins in a shop in the Argulatum. It is a humbling thought, but it is also a comforting one. If history is just a story, then you have the power to write your own chapters. You may not be able to control the emperor, and you may not be able to stop men like Varro, but you can control how you play your part. You can play it with honor, with a bit of humor, and with the knowledge that even the longest day eventually ends in sleep. You hear the sound of your wife's voice in the garden, and the sound of your son laughing at something the cook said. The performance is over for a few minutes. You are home. You take off your heavy ring and set it on the table. You are no longer a senator. You are a husband, a father, and a man who is very much looking forward to a glass of cold wine and a quiet meal. The sky outside is now a deep, velvety black, dotted with the first few stars. The city of Rome is a sea of flickering lights, a million lives, all reaching out for the same things. You take a deep breath, the scent of the garden filling your lungs. The morning was a battle, the afternoon was a cleansing, and now the night is a mystery. You walk toward the dining room, ready to face whatever the shadows have to offer, but for now, you are simply grateful for the silence and the soft glow of the lamps. The world of the Senate feels 1,000 miles away, though it is only a short walk down the hill. You realize that the true heart of Rome isn't in the marble columns or the golden milestones. It is in these quiet moments, in the rustle of a scroll, the laughter of a child, and the realization that even in a city of stone, the most important things are the ones you cannot see. You step into the light of the dining room, a smile on your lips, ready to be the man your family knows, before the world asks you to be a senator once again. The sun has finally dipped below the hills of Rome, leaving behind a sky the color of a fading bruise, deep violets, soft pinks, and a lingering hazy orange. The heavy bronze-studded doors of your villa on the Palatine Hill swing shut with a solid, comforting thud, locking the chaos of the city outside. For a few precious hours, you are no longer the Honorable Marcus Livius Drusus. You are simply Marcus. You are home. You walk through the atrium, the central hall of your house. The air here is cooler, smelling of rainwater from the central pool and the faint, sweet scent of the honeycomb candles Encolpius has begun to light. You stop for a moment in front of the wooden cupboards that line the walls. You open them slowly, their hinges giving a familiar, high-pitched creak that sounds like a greeting. Inside are the imagines, the wax masks of your ancestors. In the flickering candlelight, these faces look almost alive. There is your great-grandfather, who fought the Greeks, your uncle, who died in a blizzard in the mountains of the north, and your father, whose stern expression you remember all too well. To the rest of Rome, these masks are a symbol of your family's power. To you, they are a silent, demanding audience. They don't care that your feet hurt or that you are tired of the emperor's moods. They simply watch. They remind you that you are merely a link in a very long, very heavy chain. You look like you're having a debate with a ghost, a voice says from the doorway. You turn and feel the tension in your shoulders melt away. It's Livia, your wife. She isn't wearing the elaborate jewelry or the heavy painted-on makeup of the women you saw at the forum today. She is wearing a simple indoor stola of soft wool, her hair tied back in a practical knot. In a world of political masks, she is the only person who sees the real you. The ghosts are winning, Livia, you say with a tired smile. They keep telling me I should have been more aggressive with Varro today. Livia walks over and adjusts the fold of your toga, a habit she's had for 20 years. Varro is a man who screams because he is afraid people won't listen. You are a man who speaks softly because you know they have no choice. The ghosts know the difference. Now, come into the garden. The jasmine is blooming, and the wine is already cold. You follow her into the peristyle, the open-air garden in the center of the house. This is your favorite part of the world. It is a small square of peace, surrounded by a covered walkway with slender columns. In the center, a small marble fountain trickles water into a basin. A sound so rhythmic and gentle, it makes you want to close your eyes and stay there forever. There are fruit trees, rows of fragrant herbs, and a small statue of a garden god, who looks much more relaxed than the gods in the forum. You sit on a low couch, and Encolpius appears silently with a silver tray. He pours you a cup of Falernian wine, diluted with cool water and a drop of honey. As you take the first sip, you feel the day finally begin to dissolve. The political traps, the heavy wool of the toga, the dusty streets, they all feel like a dream someone else had. Where is Publius, you ask, referring to your son. Livia sighs, though there's a hint of a smile on her lips. He's in his room, trying to convince his tutor that he doesn't need to learn Greek, because all the interesting people speak Latin anyway. He's at that age where he thinks he knows everything, but he can't find his own sandals without help. As if on cue, a boy of about 14 comes running into the garden. He's a smaller version of you, but with more energy than you've had in a decade. He skids to a stop in front of your couch, his face flushed. "Father, did you see the news at the forum? They say a new shipment of horses has arrived from Spain. They say they are faster than the wind." You look at him, and for a moment, you don't see a future senator or a carrier of the family name. You just see a boy who loves horses. You think about the history of the Punic Wars you bought for him today, sitting in your study. You realize he probably won't read it until you force him to. "I saw the horses, Publius," you say, reaching out to ruffle his hair, a gesture that makes him pretend to be annoyed, though he doesn't pull away. But remember, a Roman needs to be able to ride a horse, yes, but he also needs to be able to lead the men who own them. "Did you finish your geometry?" Publius groans, a sound of pure, universal teenage misery. "Triangles, father? Why do I need to know the angles of a triangle to lead a legion? The enemies of Rome don't care about math." "The enemies of Rome don't," you reply with a wink. "But the men who build the bridges, your legion will cross certainly do. If the math is wrong, you'll end up in the river, and horses aren't very good at swimming in armor." He laughs, and for a few minutes, the three of you sit together as the stars begin to poke through the dark velvet of the sky. You talk about small things, the price of olives, the leaky roof in the kitchen, the funny way the neighbor's dog barks at the moon. It's a moment of pure human connection. In these moments, you aren't a senator, and Livia isn't a noblewoman. You are a family, trying to find a little bit of happiness in a very complicated world. But even here, the world has a way of finding you. The quiet is broken by a loud, rhythmic knocking at the front door. It isn't the polite tap of a friend. It is the heavy, authoritative knock of a messenger. You feel the old familiar knot of anxiety tighten in your stomach. You look at Livia, and the softness in her eyes is replaced by a look of guarded caution. Encolpius goes to the door and returns a moment later. He is holding a small scroll, sealed with red wax. He doesn't say anything, but the way he holds it, delicately, as if it might bite him, tells you everything you need to know. "It is from the palace, master," he says softly. The room goes quiet. The trickling water of the fountain suddenly sounds very loud. You take the scroll, the wax cold against your thumb. You break the seal, and unroll the papyrus. The handwriting is elegant, but the words are a command, not an invitation. The emperor requests the presence of Senator Marcus Livius Drusus at his table tonight, a celebration of the new grain laws. Do not be late. You look at the wine in your cup. It's still half full, but you've lost your taste for it. A celebration. You know what that means. It's another performance. It's a dinner where every word is a trap, every laugh is a calculation, and every dish could be a test of your loyalty. You think of what Servius told you at the baths, that Varro would be there, whispering in the ears of the powerful. Livia puts her hand on your arm. You don't have to go with a heavy heart, Marcus. You are a Drusus. You've survived the Senate floor. You can survive a dinner party. Just remember to eat little and listen much. I know, you say, standing up. Your joints feel a bit stiff, but I was looking forward to a quiet night. I was looking forward to being a father. Publius looks up at you. His excitement about the horse is gone. He's young, but he's a Roman. He understands the tone of the room. Is the emperor angry, father? You look at your son and give him the most reassuring smile you can manage. It's another part of the performance. No, Publius. The emperor just wants to talk about grain. It's very boring, I promise. You stay here and finish those triangles. If you do, maybe we'll go look at those Spanish horses tomorrow. He beams, and you feel a pang of guilt for the lie. You don't know if you'll be able to see horses tomorrow. You don't even know what time you'll be home tonight. You walk back into the house to change. You have to take off your comfortable indoor tunic and put on a fresh, even more formal toga. The ritual begins again. The wrapping, the tucking, the pinning. As Encolpius works, you look at the wax masks of your ancestors one last time. They seem even more stern now, as if they are bracing themselves alongside you. The litter is ready at the door, master, Encolpius says. You take a deep breath. You adjust your ring. You check your reflection in the silver mirror. The man looking back at you looks tired, but he also looks dangerous. You have the public face back on. The mask is tight, but it is strong. You kiss Livia on the cheek. She whispers a small prayer to Juno for your safety. You walk out of the house and step into the litter, the curtained chair that will carry you through the dark, dangerous streets of Rome to the palace. As the slaves lift the poles onto their shoulders, you feel the familiar sway of the movement. The curtains are closed, shutting you in a small, private box of silk and wood. Outside, you can hear the sounds of the night city, the barking dogs, the shouting drunkards, the rhythmic footsteps of the night watch. You are moving through the shadows, heading toward the brightest, most dangerous light in the world. The peace of the garden is gone. The smell of jasmine has been replaced by the smell of the torches that light your way. You lean back against the cushions and close your eyes, trying to find that center of calm you felt by the fountain. You are Marcus Livius Drusus. You are a senator, and the night has only just begun. The swaying of the litter is a rhythmic, hypnotic motion that usually helps you think, but tonight it only makes the knot in your stomach tighter. Outside the silk curtains, the sounds of Rome at night are a muffled roar. You hear the heavy thud of the night watch's boots and the distant, raucous laughter from a tavern in the valley below. But as your carriers begin the steep climb up the Palatine Hill, the city's noise fades, replaced by the crisp, disciplined silence of the imperial precinct. Here, the air doesn't smell of wood smoke and street food. It smells of expensive oil, scorched pine from the giant torches, and the cold, intimidating scent of power. The litter stops. The front curtain is pulled back by a Praetorian guard whose armor is polished so brightly it reflects the orange flame of the torches like a mirror. You step out, and for a moment, the sheer scale of the palace takes your breath away, even after all these years. It is a mountain of white marble and gold, glowing under the moon. You feel like a small white moth fluttering toward a very large, very dangerous flame. Senator Drusus, the guard says, his voice as expressionless as a stone wall. He doesn't need to ask for your name. He knows every face that matters in Rome. And more importantly, he knows who is expected and who is not. You walk through the massive entrance, your red shoes clicking softly on floors made of rare green marble from the ends of the earth. You pass through a series of halls where the walls are covered in gold leaf that shimmers in the light of 1,000 lamps. It is beautiful, but it is a cold beauty. It is a house built to remind everyone who enters that they are small, and the man who lives here is a god. Finally, you reach the triclinium, the great dining hall. The scent hits you first, a dizzying, heavy mix of roasting meats, exotic spices from the east, and roses. Thousands of rose petals have been scattered across the floor, so thick that they muffle your footsteps. It is like walking on a fragrant, velvet cloud. At the center of the room, on a raised platform, are the dining couches arranged in a U shape. Slaves move between them with the grace of dancers, carrying silver platters piled high with things that shouldn't be food. You see stuffed dormice glazed with honey and poppy seeds, a wild boar that has been roasted whole and filled with live thrushes that fly out when the meat is cut, and mountains of oysters resting on beds of snow brought down from the mountains by fast runners. It is a display of wealth that is almost aggressive. It says, "I can command the seasons. I can command the birds of the air and the fish of the deep." And there he is, the emperor. He is reclining on the central couch, the lectus medius. He looks relaxed, almost casual, wearing a simple tunic of the purest Tyrian purple, a color so deep it looks almost black in the lamplight. He is feeding a grape to a small, golden-collared monkey that sits on his shoulder. He looks up as you enter, and for a split second, his eyes lock onto yours. It is a gaze that feels like a physical weight. You bow low, your toga brushing the rose petals. "Marcus," the emperor says, his voice surprisingly soft. "You are just in time. Varro was just telling us a very interesting story about a conversation in the Senate today." You feel a cold prickle at the back of your neck. You look to the side and see Lucius Varro reclining on a couch nearby. He looks smug, his face flushed with wine. He raises his golden cup to you in a mock toast. You realize that the victory you thought you won this morning was just the opening move of a much longer game. "I hope that Senator Varro hasn't bored you, Caesar," you say, taking your assigned place on a couch. As you recline, leaning on your left elbow, you feel the familiar ache in your ribs. Roman dining is an art form, but it is not comfortable for a man of your age. Varro has a gift for making small things sound very large. The emperor chuckles, a dry sound that doesn't reach his eyes. "He was telling me about whispers. He seems to think the city is full of them. But I told him, I have Marcus Drusus to tell me what the Senate is really thinking. Marcus is an old tree. He has deep roots. He doesn't shake when the wind blows. It is a compliment, but it is also a warning. The emperor is telling you that he expects you to be his eyes and ears. He is telling you that your roots, your family, and your reputation are exactly what he will cut down if you fail him." A slave approaches you with a silver basin and a linen towel. He pours scented water over your hands, the coolness a brief relief. Then, the food begins to arrive. You are served a dish of flamingo tongues braised in a sauce of dates and pepper. It is delicious, but you can barely swallow. You keep thinking of Livia and Publius back at the villa, eating their simple meal of bread and olives. You think of the quiet fountain and the smell of jasmine. Here in the palace, everything is too much. The light is too bright, the food is too rich, and the air is too thick with hidden meanings. "Tell me, Marcus," the emperor says, leaning forward. The monkey on his shoulder mimics his movement. What do the old families think of the new taxes? I hear there is some grumbling about the cost of the new harbor. This is the moment. The trap is open. If you say they love the taxes, the emperor will know you are lying and will lose respect for you. If you say they hate them, you risk being seen as a leader of the opposition. You take a slow sip of wine, letting the sweetness coat your tongue as you craft your answer. The old families, Caesar, are like old houses. They creak when the foundation shifts. They worry about the gold leaving their coffers because they remember the days when a sestertius bought a whole sheep. But they also know that a harbor brings the world to Rome. They grumble because it is their right as Romans, but they pay because it is their duty as your subjects. They prefer a heavy tax to a weak empire. The emperor stares at you for a long, silent moment. The only sound in the room is the soft twang of a lyre played by a slave in the corner. You can see Varro leaning forward, his eyes bright, waiting for you to stumble. Then the emperor smiles. It is a genuine smile this time, though it is the smile of a predator. A heavy tax to a weak empire. Well said, Marcus. I shall remember that. He turns to Varro. You see, Lucius, that is why the Drusi have been in the Senate since the days of the kings. They know how to wrap a hard truth in a silk ribbon. Varro's face darkens, but he forces a laugh. Indeed, Caesar, the senator is a master of the ribbon. The dinner continues for hours. Course after course is brought out. Peacock brains, sows udders in brine, cakes shaped like the temples of the Forum. There are dancers from the distant deserts who move like snakes, and poets who recite long, boring verses about the emperor's ancestors. You play your part perfectly. You laugh at the emperor's jokes. You debate philosophy with the man on the next couch. And you pretend not to notice the way the guards standing against the walls never blink. But inside, you are counting the minutes. You feel the weight of the toga, the weight of the wine, and the crushing weight of the performance. You realize that everyone in this room is terrified. The senators are terrified of the emperor. The slaves are terrified of the senators. And the emperor? You look at him as he stares into his wine cup, a shadow of loneliness crossing his face for a split second. You realize he might be the most terrified of all. He sits at the top of the world, and he knows that everyone below him is waiting for him to fall. As the night deepens, the wine flows more freely. Some of the younger senators are starting to lose their dignity, their speech becoming slurred. The emperor, however, remains perfectly sober. He is watching. He is always watching. Finally, he stands up. The room goes instantly silent. It has been a long day, he says, stretching his arms. The grain is safe. The Senate has spoken, and my friends are full. Go now. Dream of Rome's glory. You rise from your couch, your back stiff, and your head spinning slightly from the incense and the heat. You bow one last time and begin the long walk out of the palace. As you leave the dining hall, you pass Varro. He is standing in the shadows of a column, looking at you with a cold, calculating intensity. You did well tonight, Marcus, Varro whispers as you pass. But the night is long, and the emperor's memory is even longer. We shall see how your deep roots hold up when the real storm begins. You don't answer. You don't even look at him. You walk out into the cool night air, and for a moment, the silence of the Palatine feels like a blessing. Your litter is waiting. You climb inside and pull the curtains shut, leaning back against the cushions with a long, shuddering breath. The swaying begins again. You are moving away from the gold and the roses, back toward the real Rome. You feel like a man who has just stepped off a battlefield. You are still alive, and you are still a senator, but the cost of the victory is etched into the lines of your face. You close your eyes. The image of the emperor's golden monkey and Varro's sneer dancing in your mind. You are heading home, but you know that even in your own bed, the Emperor's voice will echo in your dreams. The night is halfway through, and the city of Rome is waiting for the dawn. As the litter descends into the valley, you hear the distant sound of a fire brigade's bell. A fire in the Suburra, a reminder that while you were eating flamingo tongues, the rest of the world was just trying to survive the night. You pull your toga closer around you, feeling the chill of the early morning air, and wait for the familiar gates of your own house to appear through the gloom. The swaying of the litter, which usually feels like a gentle cradle, now feels more like the rocking of a boat on a restless sea. Inside the small box of silk and wood, the air is stale, smelling of the wine you drank and the heavy perfume of the palace. You pull the curtain back just a fraction of an inch, and the cool night air of Rome rushes in, sharp and biting. It tastes of wood smoke and old stone. You should be going straight home. Your body is screaming for the soft linen sheets of your bed and the quiet of your villa. But as the litter descends the Palatine Hill, moving toward the lower valley, the sound you heard earlier, the rhythmic, urgent clanging of a bronze bell, grows louder. It is the sound of the vigiles, the night watchmen and firefighters of Rome. In a city built of timber and crowded together like dry grass, a bell at night is the sound of a nightmare. Stop, you whisper to the lead carrier. The litter jolts to a halt. The slaves are confused. They are tired and want their own beds, but they obey instantly. You step out onto the street. You're at the edge of the Suburra, the great slum of Rome. This is not the Rome of marble and gold. This is the Rome of shadows, mud, and desperation. The streets here are so narrow that you could reach out and touch the buildings on both sides. They rise up 5, 6, 7 stories high, giant unstable towers of wood and cheap brick. You leave the safety of your litter and begin to walk. You pull the edge of your expensive purple-striped toga over your head, masking your face. A senator walking alone in the Suburra at 3 in the morning is either a madman or a ghost, and you would prefer to be seen as neither. The further you walk, the thicker the air becomes. It's a heavy, choking blanket of grey smoke that makes your eyes sting and your throat burn. You turn a corner and see it. One of the massive apartment buildings, an insula, is on fire. It looks like a giant, glowing ribcage. The flames are orange and angry, licking at the night sky, turning the dark clouds into a sickly shade of copper. You see the vigiles, men in simple tunics, their faces black with soot, passing leather buckets of water from hand to hand. It's a hopeless task. The fire is too hungry, and the water is too little. You stand in the shadows, watching the chaos. You see a woman sitting on the ground, clutching a small bundle of clothes, her eyes wide and blank. You see a man trying to climb a ladder into a smoking window, only to be pulled back by his neighbors as the roof groans and collapses in a shower of sparks. This is the reality of the city you govern. While you were debating the finer points of grain taxes and laughing at the emperor's jokes, this was happening. While you were reclining on silk cushions, these people were losing everything they owned in the world. A sudden, sharp sense of shame washes over you, colder than the night air. You think of the flamingo tongues and the rose petals on the palace floor. One of those rose petals probably cost more than this family makes in a month. You see a face you recognize. It's Gaius, the builder who came to your house this morning for the salutatio. He is covered in dust, his hands bleeding as he tries to move a heavy beam of wood. He looks exhausted, broken by the weight of the night. You want to go to him. You want to say, "Gaius, I am here. I am your patron. I will help you." But you don't move. The public face of the senator is still there, even under the hood of your toga. If you reveal yourself here, in this way, It would be a scandal. A senator does not wander the slums at night. It would be seen as a sign of weakness, or worse, a political stunt. You are trapped by your own rank, a prisoner of the very purple stripe that is supposed to make you free. You reach into the pouch at your waist. You find a heavy purse of silver, money you had intended to use for a tip or a small bribe. You walk toward a small, darkened shrine of the Lares, the gods of the neighborhood, which stands a safe distance from the heat. You set the purse down on the stone altar, where the light of the fire will make it visible to anyone who looks. It's not enough to build a new house, but it's enough to keep a dozen families fed for a year. It's a silent, anonymous act of guilt, a secret bridge between the world of the palace and the world of the mud. As you turn to leave, you hear a sound from a doorway nearby. It's a low, rhythmic chanting. You look and see a small group of people gathered around a tiny lamp. They aren't looking at the fire. They're looking at each other. They're whispering words in a language you don't recognize. Something from the east, perhaps. They aren't praying to Jupiter or Juno. They're praying to a god who, they believe, cares about the poor and the broken. You realize then that Rome is not one city. It is 1,000 cities, stacked one on top of the other. There is the Rome of the Senate, the Rome of the soldiers, the Rome of the merchants, and this Rome, the Rome of the shadows, where the gods are different and the rules of the palace don't apply. You feel like an intruder in a dream. You're the most powerful man these people will never know. And yet, in this moment, you feel like the smallest. The heat from the fire is becoming unbearable. A wall of the building falls with a thunderous crash, sending a wave of heat and ash rolling down the street. The crowd screams and retreats. You turn and walk back toward your litter, your footsteps echoing in the narrow alleys. The smoke follows you, clinging to your wool toga, a smell that you know will stay with you for days. You climb back into the litter and pull the curtains shut. Home, you say. Your voice is hoarse, cracked from the smoke and the emotion of the night. The carriers lift the poles. The swaying begins again. As you move away from the Subura, the air begins to clear. The orange glow in the sky fades, replaced by the deep, silent blue of the pre-dawn hours. You lean back against the cushions, but you don't close your eyes. You stare at the ceiling of the litter, thinking about the faces of the people by the fire. You think about the history of the Punic Wars sitting on your desk. You think about how the historians write about the great battles and the famous generals, but they never write about the man who lost his house in the Subura on a Tuesday night in May. They never write about the mother who saved her children from the smoke, but lost her only cooking pot. The humor of the afternoon, the joke about the child and the marble, now feels bitter. You realize that your life is a beautiful, expensive mask worn over a face of grit and fire. You're part of the machine that keeps this city running, but the machine is heavy, and it crushes as much as it builds. You arrive at your villa. The doorkeeper is asleep, his head resting against the stone wall. You don't wake him. You step out of the litter and walk through the gates yourself. The house is silent, the fountain still trickling its endless, peaceful song. You walk through the atrium, past the wax masks of your ancestors. They look different to you now. They don't look like heroes. They look like men who were also tired. Men who also saw the fires and the smoke and had to decide how to keep going. You reach your bedroom. Livia is fast asleep, her breathing slow and even. You don't wake her. You take off the toga, the heavy, smoky wool falling in a heap on the floor. You stand there in your simple tunic, looking out the window toward the east. The horizon is just beginning to pale. A thin line of grey is appearing behind the mountains. You feel a strange, quiet resolve. Tomorrow, or rather today, you will go back to the Senate. You will face Varro. You will flatter the emperor, and you will play the game. But you will do it differently. You will remember the sound of the bell. You will remember the smell of the smoke. You will remember that the purple stripe is not a shield. It is a responsibility. You lie down on the bed, your body finally surrendering to the exhaustion of the last 24 hours. As your eyes close, the images of the day flicker through your mind like a fast-moving play. The cold marble, the shouting streets, the dark curia, the steaming baths, the quiet library, the jasmine garden, the golden palace, and the burning slum. It is all Rome. It is all your life. You take one last, deep breath. The scent of the jasmine from the garden finally drowning out the smell of the fire. You are Marcus Livius Drusus, a senator of the Roman Empire. You have seen the sun rise and the city burn, and you are still here. The moon is setting over the Tiber, and for a few brief hours, the world is quiet. You fall into a deep, dreamless sleep, the sleep of a man who has looked into the heart of the world and decided to keep walking. The city outside begins to stir. Somewhere, a baker is opening his oven. A soldier is sharpening his sword. A child is waking up and wondering where he will find his next meal. The eternal city is preparing for another day. And when the sun finally breaks over the hills, you will be ready to meet it. The story of the senator is not over. It is just resting. Because in Rome, nothing ever truly ends. It only changes. The fire goes out, the stone remains, and the Tiber flows on, carrying the secrets of the night into the light of the new day. You are part of that flow, a single drop in a vast, ancient river, moving toward a future you cannot see, but that you help to build. The smoky wool of the toga lies in a tangled heap on the floor, a ghost of the man you were forced to be tonight. In the dim, pre-dawn light of your bedchamber, the purple stripe looks black, like a charred remains of a fire. You stand by the window, your skin still smelling faintly of the Sabura's desperation, and you watch the world shift from the deep, velvet blue of night into a cold, uncertain grey. This is the hour of the wolf, the time when the city is at its most honest, when the masks are off, and when the weight of being a Roman senator feels most like a physical burden. You move through the silent house with the ghost-like tread of a man who no longer belongs to the day or the night. Your feet, free from the red leather shoes that marked your rank, feel the cool grain of the wood and the smooth chill of the marble. You find yourself drawn back to your study, a room filled with the scent of old parchment and cedarwood. The History of the Punic Wars you bought yesterday sits on the desk, its shadow long and thin. You touch the leather cover, and for a moment, you feel a strange connection to those long-dead authors. They wrote about the glory, but you wonder if they too sat in the dark and felt the silence of a sleeping city pressing against their chests. You sit in your heavy oak chair, the wood creaking in the stillness. You don't light a lamp. The growing light from the east is enough. You think about the emperor's eyes, the way they looked at you over the rim of a golden cup. There is a specific kind of loneliness that comes with absolute power, a cold wind that blows around the throne and freezes the heart. You realize that the emperor doesn't want friends. He wants mirrors. He wants people to reflect his own greatness back at him, to tell him that the sun rises because he allows it. And you, Marcus Livius Drusus, have spent your life being that mirror. But tonight, the mirror has cracked. The image of the burning apartment building in the Sabura is etched into your mind like a scar. You can still see Gaius's face, black with soot, and the way the flames turn the sky, the color of a rusted sword. You think about the silver you left on the altar. It was a gesture, a small drop of water in a desert of need. It wouldn't bring back the houses or the memories, but it was the only thing you could do without breaking the performance. You feel a bitter laugh catch in your throat. In Rome, Even kindness has to be a secret. You reach for a clean piece of parchment and a reed pen. Your hands are steady now, the adrenaline of the palace and the fire having faded into a deep, hollow exhaustion. You don't write a speech for the Senate or a letter to a general. You begin to write a letter to your son, Publius. My son, you write, the ink looking dark and wet in the twilight. The world will tell you that to be a senator is to be a master of men. They will tell you that the purple stripe is a mark of the gods' favor. But tonight, I have seen that the stripe is a tether. It binds you to a city that is as fragile as it is grand. Do not seek to be a mirror for the powerful. Seek to be the light that shows the way for those in the shadows. Rome is not made of marble. It is made of the breath of its people. If that breath stops, the marble is just cold stone. You stop, the pen hovering over the page. It's a dangerous letter. If it were found by someone like Varro, it would be called treason. It would be called the ramblings of a man whose mind has been turned by the wine of the East. But you don't tear it up. You fold it carefully and tuck it inside the scroll of history you bought for the boy. Perhaps he won't find it for years. Perhaps he'll only find it when he's a man himself, sitting in this very chair, wondering why his heart feels so heavy. A soft sound at the door makes you turn. It's Encolpius. He has changed out of his formal tunic and looks as tired as you feel. He carries a small tray with a cup of warm milk and a piece of honeycomb. He doesn't ask why you are sitting in the dark. He simply sets the tray down and begins to pick up the smoky toga from the floor. The air is changing, master, he says softly. The wind is coming from the river. It will be a clear day. A clear day for a cloudy world, Encolpius, you reply, taking the cup. The warmth of the milk feels good in your hands. Did the others return safely? The carriers? They are sleeping, master. They are Romans. They know how to forget the night as soon as the sun touches the hills. You envy them. You envy the ability to simply close your eyes and let the day dissolve. For you, every moment is a thread in a tapestry that never ends. You think about Varro and the dinner party. You know that today, in the Senate, he will be watching you. He will be looking for a sign of the smoke on your skin or the doubt in your eyes. He will be waiting for you to make a mistake. The thought should make you nervous, but instead, it fills you with a quiet, cold strength. You have seen the worst and the best of Rome in a single day, and you are still standing. You walk out onto the terrace that overlooks the city. The Tiber River is a silver ribbon winding through the shadows of the buildings. You can see the dark shapes of the granaries by the docks and the massive, silent arches of the bridges. The city looks peaceful from here, like a sleeping beast. You know that in an hour it will wake up. The shouting will begin. The carts will clatter. The smoke of 1,000 breakfast fires will rise, and the theatre of the state will open its doors once again. But for now, there is only the moon, pale and ghostly, hanging over the water. It's a reminder that Rome is just a moment in time. The river was here before the first stone was laid, and it will be here long after the last column has fallen. You feel a strange sense of peace in that thought. You aren't responsible for eternity. You are only responsible for today. You are a guest in this city, a temporary actor on a very grand stage. You think of the Greek philosophers you saw in the bookshops. They talk about the soul being like a spark of fire that eventually returns to the stars. You wonder if the souls of the people in the Suburra are the same as the souls of the men in the palace. You think of the emperor's golden monkey and the boy playing with the marble. They are all part of the same story, all caught in the same great turning wheel of fortune. You finish the milk and feel the exhaustion finally start to pull at your eyelids. The grey light is turning to a soft, pearly pink. The birds in the garden are starting to wake up, their songs sharp and sweet in the morning air. You look at your hands, the hands of a senator, a father, a witness. They are clean now, the soot of the fire washed away, but you can still feel the heat of the flames in your memory. You turn back toward the bedroom. You will sleep for an hour, maybe two. Then you will wake up, and Encolpius will help you into another toga. You will put on the red shoes and the heavy ring. You will walk down the hill, and you will be the Honorable Marcus Livius Drusus once again. You will face the Emperor's boredom and Varro's malice with a calm, steady smile. You will speak of grain and laws and the glory of the state. But you will also look at the faces of the people in the street. You will see the builders, the merchants, and the mothers. You will see the city, not as a collection of monuments, but as a collection of lives. And when the sun sets again, and the shadows grow long over the Tiber, you will know that you did your part. You didn't just wear the stripe, you lived the life. The first beam of true sunlight hits the top of the Temple of Jupiter on the Capitoline Hill. It glows like a beacon, a spear of gold cutting through the morning mist. The day has begun. You take one last look at the moon, which is now almost invisible against the brightening sky, and you step back into the shadows of your house. The performance is about to start, but for the first time in your life, you know exactly why you were playing the part. You lie down next to Livia, her warmth a comfort in the cool room. You close your eyes, and as the city of Rome begins its daily roar, you find the silence within yourself. You are Marcus, you are home, and for now, that is enough. The soft, rhythmic chirping of a sparrow on the windowsill is what finally pulls you from the shallow depths of sleep. It's a bright, cheerful sound that feels almost offensive after the heavy, dark complexity of the night you've just survived. You open your eyes to find your bedroom flooded with a pale, pearly light. The shadows that held so many terrors a few hours ago have retreated into the corners, replaced by the honest, clear reality of a Roman morning. You lie still for a moment, feeling the weight of your own body against the mattress. Your muscles ache with a dull, persistent throb, a souvenir from the hard benches of the Senate, the marble pools of the baths, and the swaying of the litter. You look at the ceiling, at the painted vines and birds, and for a heartbeat, you wonder if you can just stay here. You wonder if the world would notice if Marcus Livius Drusus simply didn't show up today. But then you hear the distant, unmistakable sound of a trumpet from the barracks, and the low growing hum of the city beginning to breathe. Rome is waking up, and she is a demanding mistress. Livia is already gone from the bed, though the spot where she lay is still warm. You rise slowly, your joints popping like dry twigs. You walk to the window and look out. The city is beautiful in this light, before the dust and the smoke of the midday heat have had a chance to blur the edges of the world. The white marble of the temples on the hills looks like it has been carved out of solid light. You can see the Tiber, a winding ribbon of silver blue, carrying the first barges of the day toward the docks. It is a sight that has stayed the same for centuries, and yet it feels entirely new this morning. Encolpius enters the room, moving with his usual silent efficiency. He doesn't speak. He knows the morning ritual by heart. He brings a basin of water, scented with a hint of lemon and pine. As you wash your face, the coolness of the water shocks the last lingering shadows of the night from your mind. You look into the silver mirror. You see a man who is older than he was yesterday, but perhaps a bit wiser. The lines around your eyes are deeper, but the eyes themselves feel clearer. "The white toga, master?" Encolpius asks, his hand hovering over the cedar chest. "Yes, Encolpius, the white one, with the broadest stripe you can find." The ritual of the dressing begins once more. It is a dance you have performed thousands of times, but today it feels different. As the heavy wool is draped over your shoulder, You don't feel like you're putting on a costume. You feel like you're putting on armor. This toga is your shield against the chaos of the world. It is the symbol of the order you have sworn to protect, even when that order feels as fragile as a bird's egg. The letter master, Encolpius whispers, pointing to the parchment you wrote in the dark, now tucked safely inside the scroll of history for your son. Leave it where it is. Some truths are like wine. They need time to settle before they are ready to be tasted. You walk out into the atrium. Your son, Publius, is already there, sitting by the pool and poking at a beetle with a small stick. He looks up and beams, his face full of the uncomplicated joy of a child who hasn't yet learned to worry about the emperor. Are we going to see the horses, father? You promised. You look at him, and for a moment, the weight of the Senate and the memory of the fire in the Sabura feel very far away. We are, Publius. But first, your father has to go and talk to some very boring men about some very boring things. If I can survive the boredom, I can certainly survive a Spanish horse. He laughs, and the sound echoes off the marble walls, bright and clear. You realize that this is why you do it. You play the game, you navigate the traps, and you endure the smoke so that he can sit by a pool and play with a beetle. You are the wall that keeps the wilderness at bay. You step out of your front doors and into the sunlight. The salutatio has begun again. A new crowd of clients is waiting for you, their faces full of hope and need. You see the same eyes, the same desperate search for a patron, for a hand to hold on to in the storm of the city. You don't feel the same annoyance you felt yesterday. You look at them and see the faces from the fire. You see the humanity behind the requests for coins and favors. Greetings, Marcus Livius, they cry out. Greetings, my friends, you reply. And for the first time, you mean it. As you begin your descent toward the forum, you take the path that leads along the ridge of the hill, giving you a full view of the river. You stop for a moment and look down at the Tiber. You think about how that water has seen everything. It saw the twins who founded the city. It saw the kings, the heroes of the Republic, the dictators, and now the emperors. It has seen fires and floods, triumphs and tragedies. It just keeps flowing, indifferent to the names of the men who stand on its banks. You realize that Rome is not a destination. It is a process. It is a constant churning river of human ambition, fear, and hope. You are just a single drop in that river, but without you, the river would be different. Every decision you make, every word you speak in the Senate, every silver coin you leave on a hidden altar, it all matters. Not because it will last forever, but because it is happening right now. The toga is heavy, yes, the sun is hot, and the political games are dangerous. But as you look out over the city, you feel a profound sense of gratitude. You are alive in the greatest city the world has ever known. You have a voice that can change the fate of provinces. You have a family that loves you, and you have the strength to stand up and do it all over again. You see Lucius Varro in the distance, his entourage already beginning to gather. He's looking toward your house, his face set in its usual mask of ambition. You give him a small, almost invisible nod. You aren't afraid of him anymore. He's just another actor in the play, another drop in the river. You turn and continue your walk. The red shoes click on the stones, a steady, rhythmic sound that matches the beating of your heart. You move toward the curia, toward the heart of the machine, but you carry the peace of the jasmine garden and the memory of the moon with you. You are Marcus Livius Drusus, a senator of Rome, and the day is yours to write. As you step into the forum, the noise of the world rises up to meet you, a great roaring sea of sound. You take a deep breath, the scent of the city filling your lungs, and you smile. The performance is starting, the curtain is rising, and you are ready for your lines. Because in the end, The story of Rome is your story. And as long as the Tiber flows, the story never ends. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the shadows and the marble of ancient Rome. I hope this story has brought you a moment of peace and a deeper connection to the human hearts that beat beneath the history books. If you enjoyed this History to Relax experience, please remember to like the episode and subscribe to our podcast. It is a small gesture that costs nothing, but it truly helps our channel grow and allows us to bring more of these stories to life. May your sleep be as deep as the history of the Eternal City, and may you wake refreshed for your own journey tomorrow. Good night, and stay curious.